Welcome to Tripping Over Love, where we talk all about breakdowns, breakups, and breakthroughs. I'm Courtney Corona with Keith Miller.
So this was fortunate, Courtney, that we had a interview set up with Rabbi Shlomo Slatkin, who is a Imago relationship therapist. So convenient because...
Because we had our own argument last night that you chose to bring up in a good way. That sounded judgmental. I don't mean it that way.
I mean, I think you were fine with me bringing it up.
Yeah, no,
right?
I'm totally fine with it.
So if you've ever, gotten stuck in like defensiveness and rolling your eyes at your partner and all that stuff, I think you're going to enjoy listening to Shlomo. He's very clear you can tell he teaches this stuff every day. He's very clear about what's going on, the chaos in relationships that start off really well and then, things get sour. He said,
Life happens.
Life happens. You have kids. He even talked about his own, his wife does these workshops with him. And the reason they got into it is they were having some hard times and they sought the help of a therapist. And so all of us go through this stuff.
Yeah, so take a listen. Lots of tangible, good things that you can use at home.
Welcome, Rabbi Shlomo. How are you?
Good, thank God. How are you doing?
I'm good as well, thank God. So maybe just to kick things off, tell us a little bit about how you and Rivka, your wife, got started in working with couples and how that fits into the work you do in the synagogue.
So I actually don't have an official synagogue. That's actually what I wanted to do. When we were married for about 2 years, we had our first child. We were having some challenges. I think things were going on for a little while, but it hit its high point, I guess, when we were sleep deprived. And I said we need to get some help. And so I had someone that I knew that referred me to Imago therapy, and Rivka's hairdresser referred her to Imago. So we thought, okay, two people said it's a good idea. We should give it a try. And after that first session, we felt reconnected. We saw the light at the end of the tunnel. We saw kind of a purpose for all of the pain, and we were kind of, on our way to a new adventure together. There were some bumps along the road. Obviously, it wasn't just a quick fix, but I really felt that it was just transformational and really impactful. I was getting a master's in counseling psychology at the time, but I really had wanted to be a pulpit rabbi, and I had applied for a few positions. Anyway, as I was doing the therapist said, why don't you do the Imago training? It's coming up. The training that we did together.
Yeah.
There's a training coming up in Washington. Why don't you do it? I said, okay, why not? This will be good for me to have if I'm a rabbi. At least people will be coming for their relationship. I can help them out with these skills. Well, it turned out that I did not wind up taking it at the pulpit position that I was looking to across the country. I decided to stay local, and I began working, as a Imago therapist, and kind of been doing that ever since. And I've kind of moved along the journey, giving couples workshops together with Rivka, and also now I'm on the faculty, so I train therapists, kind of to do the same training that we went through so many years ago.
Cool. Maybe you can start from the beginning about what Imago is. That's
exactly what I was going to ask. As somebody who is not, you two are well versed in it, but I'd love to hear some background on what it is.
Imago therapy is a modality of couples therapy. It was created by Dr. Harville Hendricks and Helen LaKelly Hunt. It was like a work in progress until 1988 when he published Getting Love You Want. That's his New York Times bestseller, which is the basis for the therapy, and he's published lots of books since then. But basically it came about because Harville was in divorce court, and he kind of felt like a little bit of a failure because he was working with couples, he was teaching a class in marriage and family therapy, and he felt like how can I teach and help other people if I haven't the foggiest idea how to do this myself. So he set out to kind of discover why the dream becomes a nightmare, why the dream of romantic love turns into the nightmare, why relationships go sour. And he began, combining various approaches of psychology and neuroscience, and he came up with this theory that there's a lot to it, obviously, but the basics for the word imago means image, that we all have an unconscious image of our ideal partner. That it's not, we have a lot of good reasons why we fall in love with someone, but there's usually something going on the subconscious. And what is that? That we have this agenda to find somebody to help us heal our childhood. So we're actually looking to marry someone who's a composite of the positive and negative characteristics of our primary caretakers. So someone basically marry someone very much like our parents, to push our buttons, to trigger us in the way like no one else could, but to give us the opportunity to kind of do it over, to be able to grow and heal together in a couplehood. So that's kind of like I would say the main theory about why we choose each other, and why we have the unique challenges that we have, and then the purpose of it, which is for growth and healing. Of course, there's a lot more in terms of the process, how we help couples get to that place of creating what we call the conscious marriage, being more aware of their childhood triggers, and being able to have more freedom to be intentional instead of reactive. And that's a lot of that is by creating a very structured process through which couples can communicate, can interact, which helps co-regulate their brains from the anxiety that we bring from our childhood attachments.
What I appreciate about what you're sharing is that you shared that you and your wife were having some bumps, hitting some bumps, and that's the origin of this. And the same is true for Harville and his then wife that he divorced. I just went through a divorce, and unexpectedly, I mean, relationships are so complicated. I think when you and I met, I was married for a number of years at that time, even maybe 4 or 5 years before our kids, and kind of thought I had everything mastered. I thought I knew all the ins and outs, and even after 24 years, there's still curveballs in there. So I appreciate that. So, yeah, you're kind of saying that the argument that couples have across the kitchen table, "You're just like my mother," is actually, there's truth to that, and you can actually use that for good.
There is truth to that. I mean, I see it time and time again. It's very uncanny when couples discover that. Sometimes we do an exercise called the parent-child dialogue, where we actually have a role play where you talk to your spouse, but you're really talking to your parent. You choose which parent you speak to, but they're physically your spouse. The spouse is doing the acting, so to speak. They ask some questions, and when people do that exercise, you start realizing, oh wow, like I totally get this. I see that I'm telling you the same things that I'm telling, what I'm telling my mother or father right now, the same things I tell you on a regular basis. And then they start being able to see that projection and realize that they're just replaying the past.
I would imagine there's something that's really helpful too for the other partner to see or understand the childhood trauma that their partner is going through too. So it almost brings more, like if Keith and I talk about something, when I start to understand what's really going on and like at the subconscious level, I have more compassion for it too. So I would imagine that unlocks another door too, right?
That's what is so important, not just for the person sharing, but for the person who's on the receiving end, to be able to have compassion. Because usually the issues that are being triggered, let's say I feel like you don't listen to me. So if I just complain that you don't listen to me, well, you're probably going to get defensive. You'll give me reasons why you do listen to me. But if you can understand why it bothers me so much and the childhood pain, you realize it's not really about you. It's 10% about you. It's 90% about my own issue about feeling heard. And when that happens, you can look at it from a different perspective. It frees you up. Instead of being focused on yourself and protecting yourself and defending yourself and reacting, you can actually be more intentional and actually want to change and meet that need without feeling defensive.
Are there issues that couples come in where, this doesn't apply, or where you're scratching your head and maybe you try to get them to make the shift to reimagine their partner as some subconscious projection, but they just don't buy into it? I mean, how does it work? Maybe walk us through like how it works. Step one, what do you do, and how do you get people to this place where they are interested, because if they're in the middle of a dogfight, so to speak, it's good as you know as well as I do. We've done this work for a long time. It's hard to find your way in. How do you do it? What are some of your ways in?
If I'm already working, usually I have couples do more of an intensive approach because I feel like they need to get some of the background and to really buy into it. But I say in the old days when I just have someone come in for a one-time session, don't know if they'll ever come back again. Maybe I'll talk a little bit about the theory, but sometimes I'll just have them go right into the dialogue. They start talking about the current issue that they have. But of course, we're setting it up as a safe process. So it doesn't look like a dogfight. One person talks, the other person has to mirror. They don't respond. They have to repeat back what the other said. So automatically, we're calming things down a little bit so it can be more effective communication. And then, of course, helping the person deepen why it's bothering them. So just getting away from the content and the facts and talking about their feelings about it, why it bothers them. And then gradually getting them and giving them, leading them to talk about, and what this reminds me of from my childhood. And I'll just tell them to pause, take a moment, see what comes up. A lot of times things are familiar. This isn't the first. Some people say that this is my first rodeo, whatever. Like that. I've been here before. This feels very familiar, and if people can just sit with that for a moment, more often than not, they will come up with an insight. Now, occasionally you have people that are very resistant. They don't want to go there. They don't want to be vulnerable, and yeah, that makes it harder. The more resistance there is to being vulnerable, the harder it will be to make progress, the longer it will take. I believe that eventually people come around, but it requires a lot of patience, and not everybody has enough patience to keep coming back until something shifts.
One of the things that I found really interesting on your website is you talked about the difference between surviving a marriage and actually finding happiness in that. So I'm curious with the Marriage Restoration Project and how you all started your program, how you really work towards happiness versus just, we need to get through this because we made this commitment and it is what it is.
I mean, you can be roommates, but it's not really, at some point, people find other ways to disconnect and the energy is not really there anymore. So, people would say, oh, you just tell people to stay together. Like, I want people to stay together and thrive, to feel connected. So it's not just, on some ways, yes, it's a noble decision for someone to have that commitment. And at the same time, what can we do to make it better? What can we do to have more open and honest communication, to feel like people have a voice, to feel like you can connect with each other in a deep way, to feel that you can spend time together and not just live two separate lives. So yeah, the goal is really to live a fulfilled relationship, the type of relationship that people usually want when they first meet, but they kind of, as life gets in the way and as what we call the power struggle, and that bliss of the romantic phase wears away, it is a challenge. So working through the issues together helps us gets us unstuck, and just instead of just staying together for the staying together's sake or for the kids or for whatever it is, to really stay together because we want to be with each other and make it the relationship that we want.
I was going to ask him ask you if we can ask Shlomo to guide us in the conversation we were having last night.
Sure.
But if he's up for that,
if you want to walk into that one.
How much time do we have here?
Yeah, how much time do we have, right? Is it typical for rabbis to get psychology and counseling training? And is it, I assume it's completely compatible with your faith and you integrate that with people who are also from that culture and background?
Yeah, there are a lot. It's interesting. There's a lot of, in general, in my community, there's a lot of focus on self-growth, from a religious perspective. And so it was kind of like a natural combination for people to get into therapy. And there's a lot more people in our community that, more than ever, they're into mental health and therapists. Some of them happen to be ordained rabbis. There are not so many, I would say, pulpit rabbis that are practicing as therapists. There are some. There are some who have degrees in psychology, like a master's degree. And then some people some more formal rabbinic programs may have classes in pastoral counseling, or giving basic information. But they're not trained to necessarily all because someone's a rabbi doesn't mean they're trained to be a therapist or even know how to deal with some of these complicated issues. But there are many people that are wise and can offer good advice about it.
And how does Rivka fit into the intensive that you do, the weekend intensive? We can ask you to talk a little bit more about that as well.
So she's not a licensed therapist, so she doesn't do like the private intensives with me, but she does the group workshop. So Imago has something called the Getting Love You Want workshop. It's a group workshop. It's a really fabulous experience where we have couples. It's very interesting. We have couples from all over, different backgrounds come together, and they're all kind of going through the same human issues. Everyone's story is different, but it's really beautiful to watch, to see in the beginning how people are so tense, and then at the end they're like, so everyone's feeling so connected. It's a beautiful experience. So we present that together, and it's fun for us. It's fun for her because she's doing a lot of the behind the scenes work, on the website, the marketing. We do podcasts also, but she doesn't get the chance to really work with the couples. So being able to step out, like 4 times a year to do this workshop together with me, it gives her a lot of, I would say, satisfaction, because part of what inspired us to make this more than just like a local counseling practice is she grew up as a child of divorce. Her parents got divorced when she was 11, so it's very personal for her, and to know what it was like to grow up in such a situation before the divorce, after the divorce. I don't know what was worse. So she doesn't want other children to have to go through what she had to go through, and that was kind of what inspired us to make this more of a global initiative than just a mom and pop counseling shop. So she's likes to be able to come out from the computer and help out with the couples, and she knows the work because we've done it ourselves, and of course we talk about it all the time. So this is it's a really great experience. It's like what you can accomplish, and to go to therapy even once a week, it doesn't compare to immersing yourself in this 2-day experience, whether it's a group workshop or a private experience.
Yeah, I was going to ask, as you were transitioning into partnering on business ventures, were there other hurdles and bumps in the road that you had to, I imagine, at least with speaking from experience, because Keith and I are learning more and more about each other now that we're working together. So what was that like, and what was that transition like?
I think that because of the work, we know each other well enough that we're able to know each other's strengths, and we kind of if we get under each other's skin, it's because we know that that's what the other person needs to grow. So like she might push me a little bit more out of my comfort zone because I don't like to necessarily be out there as much, but she's there to kind of push me to do that. And we've built back and forth. Some of it's because of our personalities and how we connect, but also it's because of the work we've done on the relationship. And because you see with other couples, I've seen other couples who are in business together. It's not easy. It really puts a strain on the relationship.
Well, speaking of strains, this is like, I would say 90% resolved. I feel like we connected on this at the end of the discussion. But Courtney is a former journalist, and she brings that passion for getting the facts and getting the details right. And I really admire that about you. And I'm somebody who likes to illustrate things and maybe connect the dots and see where they can go. And I'm like the Malcolm Gladwell, like who is, you either really love it or you really hate it, because he's great at making these illustrations from a little bit of data. He makes these really big narratives. And so I'm not as good as Malcolm Gladwell, but I try. And I was commenting, I was watching back one of the podcasts that we recorded, and Courtney interrupted me in the middle of my story to tell me I had something wrong, that I had the facts wrong. And I was good-humored about it on the air and sort of just let her correct me, but we laughed. We had a laugh. Was it a hot tub? Was it a bathtub? So I thought, why are you nitpicking me? And maybe could you correct me afterwards? And so I brought that up. And I think I got pretty defensive, right? So is there something you want to share?
Well, I did too. My reaction was like, if something's wrong, we have to correct it. Like, it doesn't. And to Keith's point, I'm bringing the journalist in me. Any little thing that is inaccurate, I want to fix right away. So I will jump in right away. And so I got you were defensive. I got defensive because I was like, why don't you just want to be right? And who cares if somebody calls you out on it? So yeah, it took us a little bit, and we were circling, I don't know, for a good probably 15 minutes before, he went into a deeper dive into why he was feeling that way. And I realized, okay, I'm speaking from anxiety and I need to, be respectful as well when we're talking about things. But yeah.
Yeah, I was able to like shift from just, I think maybe you can relate to this, Shlomo. It's like, at first I brought it up as a complaint. It was a naked complaint. I was just like,
Right.
can you knock it off, with this? And we do that we do that as parents to our kids, and it's like, I guess it's like lazy, right? We just, can you knock it off, and that didn't go well, right? And so I readjusted and thought about it a little bit more. I was like, it's something to do with feeling humiliated. It's something to do with feeling, I don't know, micromanaged and controlled, and so the anger that I was having was, I think I was able to redirect that as sort of like it's about me.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And were you aware, I mean, like, well, if you were having that conversation, I would guide you, like, what feels familiar about this for me, and just to sit with that for a moment to see, like, is this a familiar feeling of being micromanaged, controlled, being nitpicked?
I mean, I guess I have two different parts, Shlomo. It's like I have a part of me that does, as the youngest of older brothers, remembers, for some part, not all of my childhood, but some part of my childhood was, being in their shadow in some way, right? And so as they left the house and I grew older in my teen years, I was not rebellious, but I wanted to sort of stretch my wings and kind of prove myself. So that was an important part for me. Does that answer your question? Like,
So you felt controlled by, like, the expectations of your parents, or
more like I wanted to,
or in their shadow, or
my brothers were very successful athletes. They were very good competitive athletes. And I was not. I was not a competitive athlete. I tried. And so I think I was just hostile to criticism because I was insecure about my ability. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that insecurity, like, oh, you're not good enough, you didn't do a good job, you can't run as fast as them, or
yeah. Right.
Why aren't you on the team?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, sometimes it's like layers of an onion, so, it could be that there's this, I would always say, like, to couples, like, okay, like, just whatever comes up, it could be there's more there, and, you can kind of, like, think through the week and see if something else pops up. Sometimes we just get that idea of that light bulb that says, oh, now I get this. This is like, some people it's just very clear. It's like, yeah, I used to get criticized all the time, and what I did was never good enough. One time I was, like, eating soup and I slurped, and then, I got yelled at. Things like that, that's,
Right.
but yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think there's probably, it makes sense, again, if it's hysterical, it's historical. So if something really, like, someone could hear that and just be like, okay, yeah, okay, you corrected me, okay, I was wrong, right, I got it wrong. But then it's like, if you felt like really this charge, like, how could you, like, this is so rude, like, how could you do that? And, like, then I asked the question, what's that about? How much? And then on the other end, for Courtney, like, what about, you said you had, like, anxiety that if you don't get it right, where's that coming from? I understand, as a journalist, you're kind of trained to make sure just the facts, but I wonder, also curious if there's maybe something else there as well.
Oh yeah, for me it was like a drive for perfection as a kid. I mean, I very much deal with perfectionism overall because my expectations were to be the best of the best of the best. So yeah, I think I know exactly where that's coming from, and in my professional life too, I have to. Perfect should not be the enemy of good, whatever that saying is. It's something I need to remind myself of a lot. So yeah, it's not anything new for me. And then it's balancing, I think, my need to feel perfect and to be perfect with what has just been ingrained with me. And like, if I ever got anything wrong, I would lose my job in my undergrad. You know, if I got one story wrong, or one fact wrong in a story, I would fail a class. So it, my current job, I work in consulting, and if I get one thing wrong, the client can completely flip out. So it's been my whole life that facts are important.
Interesting. So, and your perfection, and this is not, this is the way it usually works. Like, your need for perfection is the very thing that makes, that plays on your feeling of being, let's say, being criticized or not being good enough.
Yeah, exactly.
And then that's like you clash. And once you both can appreciate that, you can understand, okay, like, I don't need to get stuck in the issue, because it's not about the issue. It's about the baggage that you both bring to the table that's kind of rubbing up against each other and causing and when you can both be able to be more sensitive to each other's needs, whether it's being more, let's say, maybe I'm going to be more conscientious and about details, let's say, or I'm going to let go a little bit more, then you both can help each other heal that it's, those childhood issues that you bring to the table.
Yeah. Yeah, you're making me think about, like, it's not the end of the world for me, because I was just flipping it on its head a little bit, thinking about your question a little more. It wasn't so much, it really doesn't resonate that I had nitpicky parents or brothers, even though certainly my whole family is tightly wound and has some little bit of OCD that nobody admits. However, it truly wasn't all that bad compared to some stories that I've heard. And I had a lot of latitude. That's what really stands out. I had a lot of latitude. Like, I wasn't judged. We were in a religious community that was fairly conservative, but still, I was given a lot of latitude, like, and trust, a lot of trust that, like, you can never screw up. Basically, like, whatever you do is going to be good. And so I think that's part of what, when I say I felt insulted, that's the part that feels insulted, is like the sense of goodness or wholesomeness that I was maybe through some religious beliefs at in my childhood, like having believed that there was that, inherent goodness in what I'm doing. So that's another way of saying that I could veer towards grandiosity, right? Which means, like, I can do no wrong. Therefore, very triggering to Courtney. I could really see that.
Yeah, because I live in a world where everything is wrong, and you're never going to send anything that is not it's going to need to be fixed, and you're going to get criticized over and over again. But I guess this leads to just a bigger question when you work with couples, and how it's so important, I would imagine, in how you approach conversations like this, and when you have something that is, you need to speak to your partner about, but that could be triggering. What are some best practices or things that people should be thinking in the back of their heads as they go in an ideal world? That I know that rarely happens, but I'm curious what your advice is on that.
Well, if you're going to have a difficult conversation, you need to be mindful that you're having a conversation with an other, meaning it's great that you have an urge to share and you have feelings that are bothering you, but you have to realize that this is a relationship. There's someone else on the receiving end, and being mindful and intentional about their availability, not just logistically, but emotionally. And you do that by asking them, just making an appointment to talk. Really, it sounds kind of maybe annoying, but are you available to talk right now? It's now a good time. I wanted to talk to you about something that happened, or say exactly what it is. I want to talk to you about what happened last night when we got in our fight. And asking for that permission before just kind of laying it on. It's going to be more effective because you're not putting the person on the defensive. And then also just thinking about, what is my goal for this? Is my goal for this just to give you a tongue lashing, or is my goal for this to really, let's say, even a selfish way, like, I want you to change. Okay, so if you want someone to change, you want to make sure that they can hear you. And of course, the more lofty goal is, my goal is to connect to you, my goal is to heal, to work through this together. Of course, I want to make sure you're available. So that, I think, can make a huge difference for couples without having to do any other like fancy therapy techniques or anything. Just asking, are you available to talk now? and like making sure you have their
Right.
undivided attention. I think, especially nowadays, since I started doing this, the world has changed with technology. I mean, we're just so much more distracted than ever before. Everyone's just like this all the time,
Mm-hmm.
And to be able
Yeah.
to really like have that presence for each other and take a moment to like recenter yourself and focus, like, okay, like I'm here to listen to you. That can make a huge difference.
What I love about what you're saying by making these appointments is especially this dynamic that we see all the time with one person being the pursuer most of the time. And I know Imago talks about this, that there's, I think, at least when I was taught, there was sort of this sort of typing or like a little bit stereotyping, right? About like one person may tend to be the pursuer, one person may tend to be the avoider.
Like
And
the
if
turtle and the hailstorm. Yeah,
the metaphor, this
yeah,
turtle and the hailstorm, they get together,
yeah,
and and of course the turtle, when they get scared, goes into their shell, and the hailstorm, when it gets scared, this is where it all breaks down. The hailstorm getting scared, but like the hailstorm gets scared and it just throws this hail, and of course that freaks out the turtle more, and so it just stays in the shell. So the appointment, if I ask you if I'm typically the pursuer, maybe I'm the nagger, and I say to you, "Are you available?" That's like a breakthrough. Like that's like I'm actually asking, and one possibility is that you may say no. In fact, that may be the best learning that comes out of it, because if you say no, you have to be responsible for like when we're going to do it. It's now on you to pursue me. If you're saying no, I can't do it now. Like if I'm not going to be just an avoider, I can do it in an hour. How about an hour? And
yeah. It's important to be able to say, like, if you're not available, that's fine, but try to give the other person an opportunity to speak, because what happens is that the hailstorm, the person, or usually the person who like feels the urge to talk, it's a stretch for them to request a time, but it's also important. They have this anxiety that I need to share this, and the more that I feel ignored and shut down, that I can't speak, I'm going to get louder and louder, and it's like a volcano, kind of like it's like brewing underneath the surface, ready to erupt. And if the other person says, okay, now it's not a good time, but how about in an hour? So then that anxiety begins to subside, and like, okay, I know I'm going to be heard, so I can go on and we can interact normally. But if I'm just brushed off time after time, no, it's not a good time. It's not a good time, and it's like, and there's never a good time, because usually for the other person, they're conflict avoidant, they don't want to talk. Then that leads to inviting the opposite of what they want, an eruption.
mm-hmm.
Setting that up is a great way to make it safe for both people to have a more effective conversation about difficult
Yeah.
topics.
And maybe there's one more layer to it, right? Like the idea that she says, "Yes, I'm available," which you did. You listened. But then what I think that, speaking of the volcano, like the hailstorm got a little stormy on my end as I picked up on, well, this wasn't really just me being able to speak about my concerns. I was getting a response about her concerns, about my concerns. And so, can you speak about mirroring? I know that's a big thing in Imago.
Yeah, mirroring it's simple, but it's really powerful, because it gets the person who's listening to really be able to focus on what the other person's saying and not what their interpretation is, because we have our own filter through which we process the outside world. We have our own through which we process the relationship. I just make assumptions about you based on how things have been. So we're already like thinking two steps ahead before we even heard the person. They got all the words out of their mouth. Mirroring really focuses us to calm that inner chatter, the need to respond, the need to really to get out of yourself and really be present for another person. So it means it's repeating back as close to verbatim as possible what the other person says. So when you get better at it, it can be a little bit more natural. But in the beginning, I really teach it very strictly. Like, what I heard you say is, you're mad at me because I came home late from work. Did I get you? Is there more? And what it does is, it makes sure that the other person feels heard. It feels like you're paying attention, that you care what they have to say, that you're almost validating what they have to say. It also helps the person who's sharing feel heard, because I think that a lot of times it's not even about the issue. It's just we need to feel seen. And once we feel seen, then that's half the problem. then it also helps the person calm down, self-regulate, so that they can make space for someone else. And I don't need to be thrown off my emotional equilibrium every time somebody looks at me funny or says a comment to me. I can just be present and make space for you. So it's very, some couples I had a couple that give me a hard time about it the other day. I'm just like, well, what's the alternative? Like, how's it working for you now? And it's not.
Yeah.
So we can talk how you do at home, and but what are you going to get out of it? So there's no magic in me witnessing you fight. So at least try something different. Sometimes we have to go to one extreme to the other extreme. Drastic times call for drastic measures. Sometimes we have to go from when the relationship is utter chaos and volatility. We need to make it really tight, really safe, really almost like scripted, to get people to feel safe and to calm down. And that's what I think, that it really gets people in a different place in their brain, out of that reactivity, and really in that prefrontal cortex, being able to come up with new solutions, and because they're actually not focused on themselves and how they can survive and defend themselves.
And I would imagine once you strengthen that muscle, it does become easier. So it feels less like a task that you have to do, but just something that naturally happens as you're having those discussions too.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's awkward in the beginning, but once you practice it, it becomes more natural, and you begin to see the value, and you begin to see how this conversation takes you to a place where it never has before. So I have people that I'm not their first therapist. They've been married 20, 30, 40 years. They've talked about this issue for years. But after one dialogue, they could be like, wow, now I finally understand you. Never got it. Or the person who's sharing never understood why it bothered them, this issue, because they finally felt heard. So it really opens up a lot. It seems simple. It seems very, but it really is. I find it to be profound. It helps couples get in the state of being able to connect, and that's really what it's all about. It's not, people say, Imago, it's a communication technique. It's not a communication technique. You have to communicate because that's how we interact with the other person, but it's really a means towards an end. It's a means towards creating connection.
Tell us kind of things that you're up to, things that you'd like people to know about.
Sure. So the main way that we work with couples, it is either in a group workshop or a private intensive with follow-up sessions. The reason we do that is we just find that there's so much, couples are in a really difficult place usually when they're coming to us. I mean, we have some people who just want to improve their relationship, but we see people that are a lot of also couples in crisis. And when they're stuck, it's really hard just to come we do like a 90-minute session, but to come for 50 minutes and two people, it's like by the time you get started, the time's up, and then next week you have the new issue to triage. It takes a really long time to get anywhere, and people really don't have the luxury of being in pain or being in limbo for indefinitely. So we find that giving couples the opportunity to experience a breakthrough, to be able to see their relationship in a whole new way by really buying into the process, by experiencing their partner in a different way, by actually doing the work together, and having a conversation about an issue that's been bothering them for years, to see how it can be resolved differently. It really gets them in a better place. It gets them hopeful. It gets them committed to actually doing the work. So whatever work we do afterwards, it's much easier. So that's typically how we work with couples. We have therapists that work with us in different locations as well, who do our private intensive program. And then for those who don't want to do something in person or online, they want to do something independently, we have an online course called the 5-Step Action Plan to a Healthy and Happy Marriage. It's a course that Rivka and I created together. It's based on a book, the 5-Step Action Plan. And we have videos, we have examples of us actually engaging in the processes that we teach the people who are watching the course, the students, and workbook and audios. So this is kind of like a self-help course. And so those are kind of the main things. I mean, I also do trainings for therapists, the therapists are watching, like Intro to Imago, and also full clinical trainings for people who want to learn more and be able to do this work.
Great speaking to you, Shlomo. I want to ask one crazy question that we
Sure.
may or may not use. One of our favorite shows is a show called Nobody Wants This. I don't know if you've heard of that show, but it's about a rabbi, a young rabbi who's like an assistant to the senior rabbi, and he just broke up with his girlfriend, who was Jewish, and she was someone who aspired to be, eventually married. She was prepared to be married to a rabbi. He breaks up with her, and he starts dating. I guess they call it in the show a shikshva, like a non-Jewish woman, and it just creates all this drama. So.
It's such a sweet show,
it's
though.
It's a very sweet show.
Yeah.
Very likable. I love. I don't know who the character is who plays the rabbi, but he's very likable. You were saying you've never met a rabbi that you find is not likable.
Every rabbi I've met, I've always liked.
Oh, that's great. That's good.
There's just such a chill demeanor I find with not to stereotype.
That's a good
rabbi,
stereotype, I guess.
But yeah, no, I've always.
So A, have you seen that? And B, is that a thing? Would a rabbi actually marry or date somebody who's not Jewish?
I haven't seen it. I heard about it. Somebody mentioned it to me, but no. I mean, that's pretty unusual. I can't say it's not. I mean, definitely Orthodox side that it's not going to happen. I don't think it would, but it's pretty unusual. I guess that's why the show's so. Maybe sensational because it is so unusual.
Right. It's a story that hasn't been told, maybe because it really doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, not to my knowledge. I can't say that. There are a lot of rabbis out there, but definitely in my circles, it's not something that would kind of really happen.
Well, you're the coolest rabbi that I know. It's been great to reconnect with you, Shlomo, and would love to. Yeah, we'd love to connect again, and we should go get coffee.
Yeah. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to Tripping Over Love. Subscribe now to make sure you get the latest episode, and drop us a comment or a question. See you next time.